My name is Alina Islam, and I'm a Senior Research Associate here at Red Cloud Securities. Next, we are pleased to host Noram Lithium Corp. And have with us Peter Ball, President and COO of the company. We would also like to thank the TMX Group for sponsoring this session. Peter, you will have 15 minutes for your presentation, followed by a 5-minute Q&A session. Attendees, please feel free to ask your questions using the Q&A link, and at the end, we will get to as many as we can. With that, Peter, I'll turn it over to you to start the presentation.
Beautiful. Thanks, Alina, and welcome everybody to Noram Lithium Corp. I'm Peter Ball, and today we're going to run really quickly through the Noram Lithium story. I'm going to give a lot of quick facts. I'm going to tell the story of the history. I'm going to talk about what happened last year. I'm going to talk about what happened recently with a strategic investment and what we're going to do this year to fully accelerate Noram on all fronts. So again, Noram Lithium is focused in Nevada. We're sitting next to a highway power grid going right through the middle of our project. And as you can see on the front of your screen, first page of the presentation, this is two ways of looking at our preliminary economic assessment. On the left side, it highlights using $9,500 per ton of LCE, or lithium carbonate equivalent, has a NPV of about 1.3 billion after tax, 31% IRR. Nice numbers. If you use the long-term forecast that some people in the industry are using, which is about 14,000, it gets even more robust of about 2.7 billion, 52% IRR with a 40-year mine life. We've got enough resources for 200 years, and even having an NPV of 40 years is a bit of a stretch. Mining kid, 5th generation, so we always have forward-looking statements in mining projects. So I'm going to run quickly through. We are advancing the Zeus project in Clayton Valley, Nevada, sitting next to the only lithium producer, Albemarle, with their Silver Creek project, just halfway between Las Vegas and Reno on the side of the highway. We have about $19 million in the bank, no debt, and we're basically funded for the next 3 years. We are not going to be doing any more private placements for 2 or 3 years. We're funded all the way through the DFS stage. This year is about advancing the market, advancing the story, de-risking, re-rate, and repeat what we're about to do, what happened last year, and take it forward this year. Last year was a big year for the company. Did upgrade it for the 5th time. It's measured and indicated an inferred resource. Again, enough resources for 40 years. Nice PEA, which I've spoken of, which I'll touch on in a little bit. And I'll do some comparison to our peers in this presentation to really give new listeners today about what we're really about and what we're really going to do. We've got a good team, and we're going to be expanding our team on all fronts. We're going to be very aggressive on the marketing front, very aggressive on the engineering and geological front, and really trying to attract new eyes. This is a story that has never really had money, but the management before I came on board, which has been here for 5 years since day one, staking the asset, advancing the project. This is going to be their biggest year because we're fully financed to go there. It has been recently even more so what I call de-risk with the investment of Lithium Royalty Corp on the bottom right here you see, and Waratah Capital Advisors. My job when I came into the company was to find a strategic investor, look at the mechanisms to ensure we look after the shareholders with bringing in capital. We don't want to have too much of a burden on the structure. So it worked out really good, and we'll talk about that in a second. And again, the management insiders who have held their stocks since day one, they control about 12% of the issued shares. I'm new to the company. I just recently bought myself about 250,000 of shares, all at a price higher than what we're trading today of about 81 cents. So I'm vested and will be buying more, and Lithium Royalty Corp and Waratah now owns 16% of the company. They want up to 99. Zeus project on the left side, Clayton Valley. I've talked about the infrastructure. I've talked about Albemarle. Picture a deposit 3 kilometers long by 1 kilometer wide by 70 meters thick. Basically, you scoop it out of the ground, you throw it on a conveyor belt into the processing plant, you disaggregate it 30% solids to water, add sulfuric acid, and at the end of the processing system, you get 99.5% LCE. The good thing about our company is a lot of people that are more advanced than ourselves in regards to metallurgical studies are spending millions of dollars, which is to advantage of Noram shareholders and Noram and our team of seeing what they're doing. And I'm going to talk about Cypress, a great company who's doing a lot of work right next door. I can stand on one foot in our property and on the left foot in theirs. It's great to see what Bill Willoughby and his team over at Cypress is doing. Top right-hand side, I've mentioned about the resource and the PEA. Bottom right is really the structure of the deal. I've known the group at Wharton, really one of the the chairman, vice chair of the company for years. What I wanted to do is look after the structure for the company. So we got an overpriced financing at 82.5 cents. Really no warrant sitting on top, like a few other companies have done 30% warrant premium, which is sometimes hard on the share price going forward. It creates a wall above your stock. We won't have that. And again, right now we have a new investor, 16% of the stock, wanting to get 19 and 19 million in the bank, roughly. So two of the individuals that have been here since day one is Anita and Sandy. Anita and Sandy have been working closely together. Anita controls about 2.4 million shares of the company, Sandy about 1.5, I believe. There also is a company that owns about 1.6 million shares that Sandy's involved with. And again, coming from the investment side of the market and putting together companies, really I was brought on for the technical side, raising some capital, getting out and telling the story. And as you can tell so far, I like to talk. I'm talking a bit quick to get through this presentation. Brad Peak, he's actually staked the project, drilled every single hole in the project, worked on all the 5 resource models, so has been spectacular in regards to what he's done. And he's still here, and he's actually on site today. I met him about a week and a half ago with some investors on site down in Clayton Valley. Art Brown and Cyrus, two of the individuals. Art controls about another 1 million shares of the company. Cyrus, I believe it's 1.5, held onto their stock pretty much over the last 5 years, helping together to finance this company when they've never really had any cash. Adam's new to the board. He came on just before I did in September. His real goal is as the president of the Rare Earth Association Society in the US, really key to help us advance permitting and chips. Capital structure, the one key thing I want to point out here, other than the money and our share structure or our market capitalization, is shares issued. We have less than 90 million. We will not be issuing any more shares. We're fully cashed, except unless Waratah, with their right, chooses to buy more, and I suspect they probably will. Limited warrant overhang, and those are 94-cent warrants with a forced execution at $1.10, pretty much most of them. Bring in a little bit of cash, so at the end of the day, we have 103. And I mentioned Cypress. I think Cypress has about 150 million shares, and I'm going to do a lot of comparisons to them because they're an exceptional company, the same project sitting right next door, same metallurgy, mineralogy, geology, etc. I'm not going to talk about a lot of the items in here today, but really, back in 2016, staked the project, 5 resource models, 3 metallurgical studies, and here we are on the very far right of this page, indicating the completion of $14 million strategic investment. Just prior to that, myself, I joined and we completed the PEA. A lot of work is done, extremely busy 2021, but we're going to make 2022 a lot bigger. Albemarle Marley sitting in the center page here. This is they've been here 60 years. They're doing about 5,000 tons LCE over the next 2 years to increase their production. Zeus, of course, is our project, and really right here, right adjoining our property is Cypress. It's basically the same deposit, if you can think of it that way, basically cut in half with the property boundaries. Together, the synergies of those 2 projects together would be spectacular, but our goal is to re-rate our story as much as we can. Not going to talk about the resource, I've already mentioned it, but really in the next couple of weeks, we'll be starting a drill program, which we're on site today, taking 175 million of the inferred, shoving it up into the indicated category, because when we do a PFS or pre-fees, we need measured and indicated. You can't use the inferred anymore, but we still have enough resources for a couple hundred years. I got about 6 minutes to go. So here on the left-hand side is a lithium grade. You can see the high-grade core on the left-hand side, up to 3,000 parts per million. And it's interesting looking at a project where basically everything it pays. In other words, 400 ppm are cut off using the 9500. So, if you make a mistake with where you scoop the dirt, it probably still pay through the process facility. On the right, red is measured, brown is indicated, blue is inferred. This year, we're going to drill a couple holes down the bottom left and the top right, changing the color from blue to brown, which is inferred to indicated. As you can see, this little square right here on the left-hand side was recently purchased. It's called Enertopia, purchased by Cypress a few days ago. because their pit will now run up right to the edge of ours. So I'm going to show in a couple of slides. The only thing I want to show about this is really it's a 40-year mine life using a very low 9,500, which is $5,000 less than the market is predicting for the long-term cost price of LCE. Interesting part is our operating cost, which is $3,355, is one of the lowest in the entire industry. I'll show that in the slide, which gives us room as we move to DFS. I've mentioned that the NPV is about 2.7 billion with 52%. Again, this is a comparison of Cyprus, who has a PFS done. They're ahead of us. We have a PEA. We feel our numbers will be pretty much the same by the end of this year when we complete our PFS. But really, you know, we could pretend we're better or they're better, but really it's the same project cut in half. Maybe we have a little bit higher grade core, but really it's the same project side by side with incredible metrics at 9,500. Imagine if we used some of our peers do. There's the pit for Cyprus on the right-hand side in red. We're the blue guy here. They recently just bought this little triangle here. So their pit that looks like it's got a little squished here on the right-hand side will now continue and be added into their feasibility study, which they just announced 2 days ago, along with their metallurgical studies that they're doing an exceptional amount of work, which is really good for Noram because it's given an advantage because we have the same dirt, same geology, mineralogy, and metallurgy. This just shows really on the bottom left-hand side is how we kind of stack up against all these other players in the industry. And you can make these things any which way you want, but really what's our NPV and what's our cost using 9,500? You know, we could use 11 or 13 like Sonora or Frontier or Bacanora and Frontier. So really we're being really conservative, really low on the operating costs. And as you can see, again, I keep pointing out that we are severely discounted in the market cap to the net present value of our project, which is good, big upside. And this again, like we'll ever have money to do anything. And some of the things we'll be doing this year is looking at completing a PFS, which will look at these costs that I'm showing right here, which is the OPEX, our OPEX operating expense. Left side, even if, you know, the DFS changes to 4,000 tons and goes up by 20%, we're still below this 4,000, which appears, you know, I stole this from Canaccord, or borrowed it, I should say, cost curve in 2025 versus a lot of other players producing LCE in 2020. So a strong value proposition. Well, we got a bunch of resources, good for 200 years. And really, we could take some of this 3.89 million tons and we could it and, you know, spend a few $1 million and upgrade it so we have more of M&I. But really, when we already have enough, what's the point of spending more money just upgrading stuff that we really don't need to upgrade? We will do that in 60 today. Market cap, this was done in December, and this was done in US dollars. But if you really want to look at the valuation, our market cap today is 75 million minus 19 million in cash, or 18 3/4, whatever it is. Our enterprise value, because we have no debt, is about 56 million Canadian. And you can see what we have, you can see the metrics, you can see where we're going, and you can see that recently LRC and Waratah made a strategic investment because of all the reasons we're going to do this going forward. And really, I think that's about it. So I got 2 minutes really to summarize the end game here. We've got $19 million, and if you look at the right of this page, we're going to drill 12 holes in the next couple of months, adds 175 million tons to our indicated category. It's just infill holes. We know it's there. We just got to drill them, or we're very confident it's there. We're going to build a pilot plant and really kind of follow along and utilize the experience and knowledge that Cyprus has gained over the last 2 years doing their metallurgical studies. Complete ours, do a PFS, and really at the end of the year, we'll probably still have 14 million or more in the at the project, and we've got the capital. We can go out and hunt and pay and actually have the capital for the first time in the corporate history to buy water rights. It's key. It's part of the story. It's not all the story. You can't be 5 times discounted than a neighbor with the same asset with the same, nearly the same amount of cash, just because a little bit of water. We'll be handling that. We've engaged one of the top water attorneys in Nevada. We're ready. We'll do some BLM, baseline environmental studies, archaeological studies, and everything green initiatives. I won't talk about the crunch here. Listening, we understand where it's going, and I probably mentioned at the beginning of this project. The world needs 100 projects like Zeus just to meet this crunch. That's it. And the last thing is, I like to go. You got one share, you want to buy a share, you got $1 million. I don't care how much you have. My goal is to be accessible. Phone my cell or email me. I'll get back to you within the day, 100%. See you, Anita.
Thanks, Peter. That was a great presentation. So we do have a few questions, and towards the end there, you were cutting off a bit, but would you maybe mind just going through some of the upcoming catalysts that you had on that slide? I know you mentioned a dollar amount that you expected to end the year with. So just kind of wondering how that 19 million in the bank that you have right now will break out through the year.
Yeah, so the main goal this year, and sorry if I'm cutting out, it's maybe could be my earpiece here. We have 19 million. So the PFS is going to cost us, it's budgeted at 600,000 Canadian. So if you use $1 million, but it's going to be about 600. Drilling is going to be about 500 of that. We'll be doing a lot of pilot plant studies and metallurgical studies to add another $1 million or $2 million into that. And, we're on the hunt for water rights, which, I don't like dodging questions like that. So we got one of the best water attorneys working with us now. We've got the capital. We can get extra capital in a heartbeat to buy them, and we're going to get them. That's our goal to do that. So that is the main item. So you 19 minus what I just meant would be about 14. And if we get water rights, then we'll be spending a few $1 million on that too. So it might fluctuate.
Okay. Seems like you have a lot coming up. So just to clarify there, the results from the metallurgical studies, they'll be available next quarter or after that?
The metallurgical studies we'll be doing probably won't be available to the second quarter or third quarter. We'll be looking at putting together a pilot plant and kind of looking at what Cypress next door has done. And, it's always good to work together. So kind of look at what they're doing, and we would have additional metallurgical studies. But what I tell everybody, if you want to know what the metallurgy is for us, follow along Cypress. It's the same dirt as we have, or the same deposit as we have.
Okay, great. So Peter, we have 3 minutes left. So maybe at the last question, if you could summarize what investors could expect from a news flow perspective over the next 6 to 12 months.
That's good. So, initially, first of all, we're going to talk about the drilling. And really, is drilling important? Yes, because basically it's going to further highlight the deposit, and it's going to add tons and further increase our measured and indicated category. So that's good in regards to kind of evaluation. It's not as important as pushing forward with the pilot plant and in metallurgical studies, even though our neighbor's doing an incredible amount of good work on that side of it, which we can leverage on. We'll be doing that. So people will be watching us doing that. People will be watching us go through some initial baseline and environmental and green initiatives to what I call pre-permit a project. I worked in Nevada for a number of years, and when you work with the BLM or Bureau of Land Management, there's a lot of things you should be doing ahead of the game, and really getting forward to the PFS, which we're very confident will probably maybe even exceed the numbers we have today. And really getting out on the road for the first time at every conference where our peers are at. I hope to be speaking before or after Cypress and the rest of the groups around the world that are talking about lithium and where we'll be going. So busy, lots of news flow. And I like to talk, as everyone can tell. So I hope to meet and be in front of everybody globally.
All right, great. Well, Peter, thank you so much for a great presentation. And thank you everyone else on the line for joining us. Just as a reminder, up next we have Labrador uranium and Basin uranium. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody. And give me a call if you have any questions. Take care.